Welcome to this episode of the Be Raire Podcast with me, Jessica KImber, founder of Raire. And today we have Nathan Anning. Welcome, Nathan.
Thanks for having me, Jess. Thanks for inviting me on.
No, thank you so much. And as you know, the Be Raire podcast is all about adding value to recruiters, teaching them how they can be rare, be unique, be different, stand out, and add more value to their audience than their competitors. So with your experience, I'm really excited to gain your valuable insights into the world of recruitment, how you've worked your way up in the industry, and you're now obviously managing a very large team as well. So we'll cover all of that in this episode. But what I wanted to start off with is to understand more about your story in terms of how you got into recruitment in the first place and how you worked your way up to where you are now.
Yeah, sure. How far back do you want me to go?
How did you get into the industry?
How did I get into the industry? Okay, so a bit of backstory. When I finished school, this is going to be like real backstory. So when I finished school, I spent 7 years living abroad over in Canada. And when I was living in Canada, I was working in pubs and clubs and restaurants, getting $7 an hour as my wage. And I think the way that you made money over there was to earn tips through great customer service and you know, that whole experience part of things. So when I moved back to Australia after 7 years, I found myself in a sales role with Flight Centre, selling travel to customers. And after doing that for about 6.5 years, COVID happened. The industry obviously shut down quite a lot and turned into a very, very different side of travel sales. So I left that. I took a 6-month role as a sales manager for a gym. And then that wasn't for me, a very, very transactional side of sales. And so how I fell into recruitment was going back and really looking at what I loved about my role in travel. And that was the relationship building side of things, having customers come back to me time and time again and being their number one source for all things travel related. Did some research and found out, hey, recruitment sounds like it'd be something that would be really, really suitable for me. And here I am, fell into it like pretty much the rest of my team have. And 3.5 years later, here we are.
That's crazy, isn't it? Do you think if it wasn't for what happened with COVID, you would have even thought about recruitment? Or was it one of those things that was like right place, right time?
If it hadn't been for COVID, I'd probably still be selling holidays to people, I think. Yeah.
So crazy, isn't it? That something totally out of your control happened in the world. And now you've gone on this path, which you've, of course, been very successful in as well. And yeah, perhaps it would never have been otherwise. So look, I love it. And you're right. I think most people fall into recruitment. I don't think I ever speak to anyone who says, you know what, I chose this from a really young age. We all got poached in some way. How did it work out in terms of recruitment? Did you start actively applying for roles, or did another recruiter approach you and see the similarities in the traits and experience that you had?
No. So when I decided this was the pathway I wanted to go down, I just applied for a CCAD and it was through a rec-to-rec, John Burke actually at the time, and he had a few chats with him initially, and then a video interview with him, and then he got me in front of a couple of different clients. A few interviews were booked, and then landed this role with the Anderson Partnership as a little rookie recruiter.
Amazing.
So it was really, really easy experience. It was great.
Yeah. That's great. And it's great you had the guidance at the beginning as well to put you in front of companies where you could interview and you had that support. So that's awesome. Yeah. And you've been with the Anderson Partnership for 3.5 years now. Is that right?
Yeah, between 3 and 3.5 now. Yeah.
Amazing. And you've worked your way up to director. So talk to me a little bit about your journey over the last 3 years.
Yeah, sure. So came in as a rookie recruiter and started working the general insurance market around Queensland. And general insurance is anything broking claims, underwriting related, all different levels, all different locations around Queensland. And after about 8 months, I think I got promoted to senior. So just set KPIs in place in order for me to step up into that senior consultant role. At the time, we were a very, very small team. There was only myself and one other consultant. And at that time, was tasked with growing the Queensland team. So sat down with my MD, who put some really, really clear numbers and targets around headcount growth and team revenue in order to hit the manager position. So I think probably within like 7 or 8 months I had done that. So grew a smaller team around me. I think there was 5 of us at that point. We were hitting the revenue targets. So stepped up to that Queensland manager role. And then we expanded. So it was myself doing insurance, one person doing accounting, and then I think we had a legal and who else do we have on there at the time? I think another accountant, recruiter maybe. So just a small team again. And then to go up to the associate director level, we hired another 2 people. Same sort of strategy around KPIs, headcount growth. And yeah, director only happened last year in, I think, around August, September time. That was having a team of 10, including myself, covering all of the different disciplines and then consistently hitting those team revenue goals as a collective. So yeah, that's been my journey so far.
I love it. Sounds like over the years you've just had so much consistency in your activity, your billings, your revenue, etc., which is awesome. I know it's actually very common in recruitment agencies that they do have that set structure. So its milestones are based on activity figures and billings. So with regards to your experience and any advice you could provide recruiters, like what metrics are the most important to measure in terms of being able to tell if what you're doing is on track and how you can then build out desks and branch out from there?
Yeah, sure. So I think making sure that you've got an even spread of fees among the different consultants covering the different disciplines in your office. So we have 5 different disciplines that we operate in. We only have launched that 5th one this calendar year so far. So that's relatively new. So prior to that, it was 4. So making sure that there's an even spread amongst all the different consultants that it looks like it's going to be profitable. So I guess it gets to a point where someone says, I can't take on any more. And that probably means it's time for a desk split. So I know with myself with insurance, it got to a point last year in August where I was covering the whole of Queensland. And it got to a point where I thought, I can't cover the whole of Queensland anymore. I need to bring someone on and I'll just specialize in the Brisbane market and give someone else the rest of regional Queensland. And so we've kind of done that with all of the different disciplines. But to answer the question in terms of what are the most important KPIs, I guess it would have to be the revenue that's coming in per desk before you look to make that split.
Okay, interesting. And would you ever hire a new consultant onto a cold desk to build out a new area, or do you predominantly focus on desk splits?
We have definitely brought people on to do that cold desk space. With the role that we've recently brought someone on to look at that commercial finance space, it's actually the role that I look to help you recruit me for. He's come on as a business manager level. He's got experience. He knows the industry, so he should be able to come on and just run with that himself.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it's always good to have the industry experience, isn't it, when there's a new desk? In my experience, though, and I would love your experience with this being a hiring manager for a bigger team. What I tend to find is if a recruiter has industry experience and knowledge, sometimes it's actually harder to get them to move to another desk which is identical, because it's almost like, well, why would I give up my current billings? There's a non-compete clause involved in most cases to do similar in another business. What I tend to find is actually it's a little bit easier to get a consultant who has different industry experience onto that desk, because that's the industry that they want to get into. So it's kind of worth it to drop their billings and drop their success in the previous businesses. But obviously you've got so much hiring experience. So what's your feedback on that? Have you found that as well?
I think with this particular hire, we've been able to give them the ability to have a real clean slate with it. So we've pretty much said your division is going to be the finance space, but you're not restricted by industries that you can recruit for. So go out, make it your own. We'll look to put a couple of people around you and you can start to grow that team within you as well. So I think that's quite exciting for this person. That's what they were looking for. And yeah, it's unrestricted. So it's working really well so far.
That's true. Yeah, the unrestricted desks are a lot better as well. Go for anything.
Yeah.
Look, no, that makes sense. And yeah, I love your approach. And of course, you've built your team up from pretty much yourself to, is it 12 people now? Is that still right? Or is there more?
11 now. Yeah, 11
people. Amazing. So what do you look for when hiring in terms of like traits and characteristics of a successful recruiter?
Yeah, sure. So probably a few different things. resilience would have to be the first one. So testing them in an interview or just asking them to give me examples of where they've had to deal with rejection before. What do they do to pick themselves up on the other side of that? How do they cope with, I guess, a lot of no's? Most people are able to give really, really great examples and how they deal with it. And that might not be something that they deal with, how they deal with it in a work-related sense. It might be doing something outside of the business, like going to the gym is something for myself, for example, is how I help deal with that rejection piece. Someone who's a real team player is really important for this office as well. Like our whole office is kind of sectioned off into 2 people on a different market, or 3 in some instances. So making sure that they can work really, really collectively with their peers. And then the third thing is probably, do I like this person? Can this person fit in with my team? And then I'll get my team involved in that interview process as well, as a bit of a tick all the boxes, make sure everyone gets on. And so it's going to be a really, really collaborative partnership within the office. They're probably the 3 main things that I look for.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think it's if they don't get on with the wider team, that's when it starts to become a little bit clunky, doesn't it? And people get a bit disjointed. So yeah, that makes sense. But in terms of like keeping the team engaged, I understand they're all at different levels in their career, different stages of their career. So what's your approach as a leader?
Sure. So whenever we have a new starter, so we have some set team expectations that the team all came up with together. So we have expectations of myself as a director, but then I also have my expectations of what I expect from the team. And this is something that we all sat down and came up with together in a bit of a planning session at the beginning of the financial year. So every time there's a new starter that comes on, we will revisit those expectations. They're re-rolled out to the wider team as a little refresher course, and then that new person is brought into them as well. And those can be things around minimum activity stats as a new starter. It could be things around basic dress code. It could be things about start and finish times, office cleanliness, note taking after a client meeting, all those sorts of important things. And that way, if someone's diverting a little bit, you can tap them back into line with that follow-up piece, and that's what creates accountability. So that's probably the first part of it. And then I find that just creates a really, really unified team where everyone can hold each other accountable if someone's not meeting the benchmarks as well. And then the other thing is, I guess, having a really unified leadership team. So myself and Alex are the 2 leaders in the office. We're developing Jade to kind of step up into a management role soon as well. So making sure that the 3 of us have regular meetings. Well, at the moment, it's Alex and I having the regular meetings. So on a Monday, we'll sit down, we'll celebrate the wins, we'll look at opportunities from the previous week, and then we'll come up with, call to action points for the following Monday before we sit down again. So they're probably a couple of the things. Engagement. What else do? We do lots of office games. I kind of run out little mini directorships. So I've got someone who does like a Magic Monday session, someone who's on candidate competitions on Tuesdays. We have a marketing person on a Wednesday, as a business development or a client focused person on a Thursday. Give them a little directorship so they have to own it. Takes a little bit of the time away from me having to arrange these things as well. And then just makes the office fun. It gives a really, really great environment. There's prizes for people if they do really, really well. It could be 30-minute finish, could be a coffee, a drink, something like that. So just something just to keep everyone engaged towards the overall common goal.
Yeah, wow, I love it. You know what? Every business that I've worked in terms of an agency before having my own, the culture has been the biggest focus. And the culture is why I stayed in the agencies I was in for so long. Because even, for example, like the business development days, like no one wants to sit there making 50, 60, 70 BD calls all day, right? But it's so much fun when you've got I remember we used to play like bingo. You'd like tick off and mark off like all the bingo activities that you've done. And it was just so much more fun, and it keeps the team engaged. So I'm a big advocate for that side of things as well. In terms of, I guess, like driving culture in the office as well, like in general, I know games is something that you focus heavily on. But like what else? Like how do you keep people motivated if they're having challenging conversations, they're having difficult calls, they're having one of them weeks where just nothing is going their way? Like what would you do, or what's your approach in that circumstance?
I think it's all about knowing what individuals' personal motivators are, and then relating it back to that, whether that be from a professional sense or a personal sense. So if someone's trying to save up for a house deposit, for example, it's reminding them that all of these no's might be one step closer to that yes, and that's what's going to put them back in line with that personal goal. If it's a professional goal and there's someone new and they want to make their first deal this month, it's saying, well, these activities are the metrics that's going to get you towards that. So if you continue to do all these, even though you might not be getting somewhere right now, eventually it is going to get you there, because that's what there's evidence to prove that this is what's going to make deals happen, right? So I think that's probably what we do.
Yeah, no, I love it. In terms of that, like data and stats and conversion, now I'm asking you this a bit on the spot, so you might not have the exact answers to it, but do you have like a formula in terms of statistics? So if you make X amount of calls, that should lead to X amount of interviews, that should lead to X amount of offers, for example. Do you measure based on that conversion rate, or how do you manage that to make sure that they do get the results and the activity is actually productive activity?
Yeah, sure. We kind of measure it on, I guess it's all around interviews. So across the wider business, depending on what industry you cover off on, it's between 6 to 8 interviews should result in one placement. So, and then whatever the trickle down of that, you put me on the spot, so I don't know what the numbers are at the top of my head.
Sorry.
Measure it on CVs out. So say you send 8 CVs to a client, that could result in one interview, which then if you get so many will result in one placement eventually.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've read in the Greg Savage books. Have you read any of the Greg Savage books or listened to him?
2/3 of the way through the first one,
Yeah, perfect. I'm not sure whether you've got to that bit yet, but that's actually what he talks about a lot. Amongst other metrics, it's like, well, getting people in front of your client is the only way you're going to get offers. The rest of the stuff is kind of background, even though it's absolutely critical. You need to be getting people in front of the clients, and that's the conversion rate that you should track. It's good to know someone like Greg. That's what he's following as well, right? Because it's so true. In terms of like the market overall, I know the insurance space is very up and down when it wants to be, and it's very seasonal as well. So what's your experience in terms of managing the seasonal requirements or the ups and downs of the insurance industry?
I think it's learning the trends within your market. So what I've realized over the last few years, that at this time of year, so May, June, it's almost like all of the businesses have their recruitment budgets that they need to use to upskill for the new financial year. And I think broker support or broker assistance at this time of year, everyone needs them, but you can't find many of them. So you find one good one, they're usually interviewing with 5 to 6 different businesses, and then they will definitely land themselves a job. So getting ahead of that, so say in February, March time, knowing that we're coming up to that sort of season, it means that you start sourcing for those roles, even though you might have the live roles going, so that when the jobs do come on, you've got pipeline of candidates ready to send over. So it's more of a, you're not reacting, I guess, when that demand comes, because all at once you'll have 6 to 8 clients reach out to you in the same week saying, we all need this exact same person. And knowing that there's such a shortage of them regardless, it just makes it so much harder for you.
Yeah, so true. Hey, so you personally focus more so on like the broking side of things? Is that your specialty?
Yeah, we do all three, I guess, avenues, so claims, broking and underwriting. But I think in the Brisbane market in particular, the broking is where the demand is, and that could be all levels. It could be senior brokers, account executive level, or those junior support staff as well. Those 3 levels, people are always needing them in Brisbane.
Okay. If they're difficult to find, I would assume you're in somewhat of a talent short market. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it fluctuates. Sometimes you're very talent short, very job heavy, and sometimes it flips on its head as well. At the moment, we're definitely in the talent shortage phase.
Yeah. Okay. And in terms of sourcing strategies, how do you go about finding talent that is difficult to find?
Yeah, I think so. Probably mid last year, the team as a whole adopted a bit of a personal branding strategy, and well, hats off to you, because this is where this kind of all stemmed from. But we've all got, I guess, content calendars that we use for monthly posts on LinkedIn to try and create that credibility and build trust, so that candidates do have that inbound, or you are getting those inbound leads now. And from doing that now for, I guess, the last 9 to 10 months, that has really worked. People do see value in it, and it does make you the obvious choice when people are looking to find a recruiter to work with. So that's something that's worked really, really well for us.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, as you know, I'm a huge advocate for that side of things. That's where all my business comes from. So
Mhm.
it definitely works. I know you're great at posting content, but do you have like an outreach strategy as well in terms of how many people you message? Do you measure that as a team?
Not so much as a team. My personal would
Yeah.
be whenever someone engages with one of my posts, I'll send them a thank you message. Like there've been people that I've slipped through the cracks somehow, and I've noticed that they like every single one of my posts. So just sending them a bit of a thank you message for the support goes such a long way, and then it drives that conversation piece, and then you can talk about their role, and that moves on to what aren't they happy with, et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera. And I think 3 of my last, say, 6 placements have all been from inbound leads through LinkedIn. So it's working really, really well.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Mm.
That's exactly what I do and teach as well. It's like if you, and I call it a tribe, like you'll start to notice the more that you post that there's certain people that like pretty much everything that you say. So
Yes.
whilst they may not be a client or a candidate, there's a good chance that they resonate with your message. They think that you can help. So it's just a really easy way, isn't it, to just start authentic conversation. So yeah, look, I'm really glad you're having that. And look, 50% of your most recent placements have been inbound leads. I mean, you can't complain about that, hey?
Oh, absolutely. It's like helped so much compared to this time
Yeah.
last year. Like it's amazing.
Good, good. No, that's awesome. In terms of other sourcing strategies or platforms, like I guess you're more headhunting side of things, like
Yeah.
what would you do to approach talent in terms of filling those hard to fill roles?
I come from it a little bit more of a softer approach. I think one of the benefits that I can, and candidates will vouch for me on this, is I'm not a pushy salesperson. Like if it's not the right role for someone, I'm not going to try and push them into taking that role because that's not who I am as a person. And I know candidates have referred other candidates to me because of having that method. So when I'm engaging with candidates initially, it's more of a get to know you sort of piece rather than I've got a role for you. Are you interested in it sort of approach?
Yeah.
And I think that's really helped me. That's gotten me referrals. Bit more of a softer approach. So taking them out for a coffee just to learn about them, learn about what they're currently doing, learn about, if there is anything that might pop up in the future. I think probably play about 90% in the passive market because then when a role does come on, there's a lot of pipeline there ready to hopefully re-engage and talk about a new role with. So yeah, that would be my approach.
Yeah, I love it. Same as me. I'm definitely a soft selling type of person. Like
Mm.
I play the long game as opposed to here's a job right now. You should go for it kind of thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
can definitely relate. But look, what's your opinions on the market moving forward? So in the recruitment industry as a whole, or even in the insurance industry, like what do you foresee happening in the next 12 months?
The good thing about the insurance industry is it's never going away. Like there will always be
Yeah.
a need there. Like if you think about it, insurance, you can cover absolutely anything. So that's not ever going to go away. So the market is always going to grow and grow and grow. A lot of my clients I've noticed are all growing through acquisitions. Therefore, they're inheriting talent from businesses that they're acquiring. But a lot of the time we're finding that the staff that they're inheriting through acquisitions are not the right staff for the team culture, and therefore there's always going to be a bit more of a need there. So I think that's going to continue. I would say it will continue to be a balance of lots of candidates, not many jobs, and then flipped on its head again. And I'd say there's going to be some really, really big players which dominate the Australian insurance market. So those will be the ones to really nurture those relationships and stay with.
Amazing. Sounds good. And in terms of, I guess, moving forward, when recruiters are looking to excel in their role, what do you think that they would need to embody in order to do a good job in the next 12 months with the market changes?
I think they need to make sure that they've got good strategies from all different angles. So that will be a candidate pipeline approach, a BD pipeline approach, a personal branding approach. They need to essentially have lots and lots of plates spinning. I also think having a bit of a different approach with clients when you're meeting with them and you're taking a full job brief. So you'll always get painted the perfect picture of what does the ideal candidate look like that you're looking for. But trying to educate them on it might not always be we might not always be able to find that person for you. So what's your plan B? What areas are you happy to wiggle on? Is it the salary? Is it the experience level? Is it the location? Can you offer a little bit of work from home? Like what does your plan B look like? Because there's a lot of success in being able to place candidates that are maybe not the 100% perfect candidate into a role, but you will still be able to place someone who's very, very close.
It's so interesting because I think a lot of recruiters, they sometimes get afraid to do that pushback and they think that they'll potentially lose the role, or that makes them look as though they're not great recruiters because they can't fill the role. But the reality is it's a golden unicorn to match, even 80% of the job description. So what would you do? Let's just say you propose that to a client and you got that pushback. Maybe they weren't as on board with it. Like, what would you do in that circumstance?
I would take the original job brief, I'd go out to the market, and then I would make sure I come back with them with some real evidence on what I was finding. So if it was the salary, I'd say, okay, great, I met with this many people over the last week, 2 weeks of time. This is what I'm finding on the market average for what you're looking to pay versus what they're looking for or what they're currently on. Or if it was the experience level, it's the exact same thing. So I just get some real data and some evidence, take it back to them, present it. And if you can showcase that, I think that really, really creates a lot of credibility to the client. They can then trust you and they can say, hey, this person actually knows what they're talking about. We probably need to listen to them. And then you would definitely find that there's that wiggle room. Might not be immediate, but at least, 1 week, 2 weeks, depending how pressing the need for the role is, like they will come to you at some point with it.
Yeah, so true. I think as well, credibility is one of those things that comes after a period of time. You know your market, you can have conversations with people around that, but also you can then post online what's up here, what's in your mind that perhaps your audience doesn't know that you have, in terms of knowledge. But and I know that you've hired some juniors as well. Let's just say you hired a junior on your team. They maybe didn't have that level of credibility yet, just due to experience. What would you teach them to do? Like, how would you ask them to approach that?
I think I would start with getting them to take a really, really thorough and in-depth job brief as the first point. And then if it was a market that we knew something about, I'd probably know off the top of my head that there might be a little bit of pushback on that, but I'd get them to follow that process. I'd get them to take a job brief, learn the ins and outs of that so that they can go and be confident in actually sourcing for the role. And then if they are finding lots of commonalities for pushback, we'd then take that back to the client, present it to them, and then we'll have that conversation. Probably wouldn't want to scare them initially because they're like run off crime, but I'd probably have that sort of approach.
Yeah, good. Okay, now look, that makes sense. Okay, awesome. Well, let's finish off. So I always put people on the spot as my very last interview question, which is, what are the top 3 pieces of advice you would give to recruiters who are looking to excel in this space? Maybe they're struggling a little bit at the moment and they just want to break through the barriers and challenges that they're facing. What's the top 3 pieces of advice that you would give them?
Good question. So I think the first would be, don't overthink it. Even when you are going through those challenging points in recruitment, our job should be fun. Like, it shouldn't be hard. Like, if you think about it, at the end of the day, yes, there's a lot of hard things that go in between, counter offers, can't find candidates, all those sort of things. But at the end of the day, we're trying to match a person with a business and a business with a person, and it should just be fun. So if you get bogged down in all of the negative things that go through your mind, once you start, those negative things will then become behaviors and actions, and then you'll start having bad, you'll be doing things which aren't going to be beneficial to your desk. So don't overthink it and just have fun with it. That would be the number one thing. I also think it's very easy as recruiters for us to never be able to switch off. So having some sort of personal strategy where you can switch off. So not having emails on my phone, like I won't have emails on my phone after hours, is something that I do. Educating your clients and candidates around what your office hours. Of course, there's going to be times we need to bend the rules, but just making sure you've got some sort of balance in your life to be able to switch off. And the third thing, I don't know. Now you've really put me on the spot.
Sorry.
Surround yourself with an amazing team, because if you're part of a team that can lift you up when things are going well, and then also lift you up when things are not going so well, then that's the sort of space that you want to be around. There you go.
Yeah. You did it. No, honestly, 3 really great pieces of advice there. So true. I think that's the mentorship side of things, the support, who you're with is what picks you up when, you feel like you're alone, because it is a position where you can feel alone. It feels like all the problems in the world are yours sometimes. So it's good to be surrounded by good people.
For sure.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, look, Nathan, thank you so much. You've offered so much value and insights in this podcast. So I appreciate you coming on the show, and I wish you all the best with your team.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Nathan.